I had always wanted to spend a weekend in a cabin in the woods, away from the noise and stress of the city. I found a cheap rental online and booked it without hesitation. The pictures looked cozy and rustic, and the reviews were mostly positive. I packed my bags and drove to the location, eager to enjoy some peace and quiet. The cabin was located at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by tall pine trees. It looked exactly like the photos, except for a few signs of wear and tear. I didn't mind, though. I was more interested in the inside, which had a fireplace, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. It was small, but perfect for me. I unloaded my car and settled in. I lit a fire, made some tea, and curled up on the couch with a book. I felt relaxed and happy. I decided to go to bed early, since I had a long drive and wanted to wake up refreshed. I slept soundly until I heard a loud thud outside. I jolted awake and looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. I wondered what could have made that noise. Maybe a branch had fallen from a tree, or an animal had bumped into something. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep, but then I heard another thud, followed by a scraping sound. I got up and grabbed a flashlight. I walked to the window and peered outside. I saw nothing but darkness and shadows. I felt a chill run down my spine. I decided to check the door, just in case. I walked to the front of the cabin and turned the knob. It was locked. I felt relieved until I noticed something odd. There was a piece of paper taped to the door, with a message written in red ink. It said, "I know you're in there. Let me in." I felt a surge of fear and disbelief. Who had written that? How did they know I was here? What did they want from me? I looked around, hoping to see a sign of a prank or a mistake. But there was none. The paper was fresh and the ink was wet. Someone had been here, and they were still here. I panicked and ran to the bedroom. I locked the door behind me and grabbed my phone. I dialed 911, but there was no signal. I cursed and threw the phone on the bed. I looked for another way out, but there was none. The only window was too small and too high to climb through. I was trapped. I heard a loud bang on the front door. It sounded like someone was trying to break it down. I heard a voice, muffled and distorted, but unmistakably angry and menacing. "Open the door! Open the door, or I'll make you!" I screamed and backed away from the door. I looked for something to defend myself with, but there was nothing. I was helpless and alone. I wondered who this person was, and why they were doing this to me. I wondered if I would survive this night. I heard another bang, louder and harder than before. The door cracked and splintered. I saw a glimpse of a face, twisted and evil, through the gap. I screamed again and ran to the corner of the room. I curled up into a ball and closed my eyes. I prayed for a miracle, or a nightmare to end. But it didn't. It only got worse. I had always wanted to spend a weekend in a cabin in the woods, away from the noise and stress of the city. I found a cheap rental online and booked it without much research. It looked cozy and rustic in the pictures, and the reviews were mostly positive. I packed my bags and drove there on a Friday afternoon, looking forward to some peace and quiet. The cabin was located at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by tall trees and thick bushes. It was smaller than I expected, but it had a fireplace, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom. I unloaded my car and went inside, feeling a bit nervous but also excited. I decided to explore the cabin and see what amenities it had. The first thing I noticed was that the cabin was very dark. There were only a few windows, and they were covered with curtains. The light bulbs were dim and flickering, and the walls were stained with dirt and mold. The furniture was old and worn, and the floorboards creaked with every step. The cabin smelled like dust and smoke, and I felt a chill in the air. I tried to ignore the unpleasant atmosphere and focus on the positive aspects. The cabin had a TV, a DVD player, a radio, and some books and magazines. There was also a phone, but it was disconnected. The kitchen had a stove, a fridge, a microwave, and some dishes and utensils. The bathroom had a shower, a toilet, and a sink, but no hot water. The bedroom had a bed, a closet, and a dresser, but no sheets or blankets. I decided to make the best of it and start a fire in the fireplace. I found some wood and matches in a cupboard and lit a fire, hoping to warm up the cabin and create a cozy ambience. I then went to the kitchen and made myself a sandwich, using some bread and cheese I had brought with me. I ate my sandwich and drank some water, feeling a bit hungry and thirsty. I then went to the bedroom and unpacked my bags. I had brought a sleeping bag, a pillow, a flashlight, and some clothes. I spread my sleeping bag on the bed and put my pillow on top. I then changed into some comfortable clothes and went back to the living room. I turned on the TV and browsed through the channels, looking for something to watch. I found a horror movie and decided to watch it, thinking it would be fun to scare myself a bit. The movie was about a group of teenagers who went to a cabin in the woods and were attacked by a masked killer. It was a typical slasher film, with lots of blood and gore. I watched it with interest, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. I liked horror movies, and I thought they were entertaining and thrilling. The movie ended around 10 p.m., and I decided to go to bed. I turned off the TV and the lights, and grabbed my flashlight. I walked to the bedroom, feeling a bit nervous. The cabin was very dark and silent, and I felt like I was being watched. I tried to shake off the feeling and told myself it was just my imagination. I reached the bedroom and closed the door behind me. I got into my sleeping bag and turned on my flashlight. I read a magazine for a while, trying to relax and fall asleep. I heard some noises outside, like branches snapping and leaves rustling. I told myself it was just the wind and the animals, and nothing to worry about. I put down the magazine and turned off my flashlight. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I felt restless and uneasy, and I had a bad feeling in my gut. I wondered if I had made a mistake by coming to this cabin, and if I should have stayed in the city. I wished I had someone with me, someone to talk to and comfort me. I tossed and turned for a while, unable to sleep. I heard more noises outside, louder and closer. I heard footsteps, heavy and slow. I heard breathing, deep and ragged. I heard knocking, hard and persistent. I opened my eyes and felt a surge of panic. Someone was outside, someone was trying to get in. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on. I looked at the door and saw a shadow, a silhouette, a shape. It was a man, a large and muscular man. He was wearing a mask, a white and bloody mask. He was holding a knife, a long and sharp knife. He was the killer from the movie. He was the killer from the movie. He knocked on the door again, harder and louder. He said something I couldn't understand. He sounded angry, he sounded insane. He wanted to kill me, he wanted to kill me. I screamed as loud as I could. I hoped someone would hear me, I hoped someone would help me. But there was no one, there was no one. I was alone, I was alone. I got out of my sleeping bag and ran to the window. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I tried to break it, but it was too strong. I looked outside and saw nothing but darkness and trees. There was no escape, there was no escape. I heard the door break, I heard the door break. He had kicked it down, he had kicked it down. He entered the room, he entered the room. He saw me, he saw me. He smiled, he smiled. He raised his knife, he raised his knife. He came closer, he came closer. I backed away, I backed away. I reached the wall, I reached the wall. I had nowhere to go, I had nowhere to go. He was in front of me, he was in front of me. He grabbed me, he grabbed me. He stabbed me, he stabbed me. I felt pain, I felt pain. I felt blood, I felt blood. I felt life, I felt life. But I also felt anger, I also felt anger. I also felt fear, I also felt fear. I also felt survival, I also felt survival. I kicked him, I kicked him. I kicked him in the groin, I kicked him in the groin. He groaned, he groaned. He dropped his knife, he dropped his knife. I grabbed his knife, I grabbed his knife. I stabbed him, I stabbed him. I stabbed him in the chest. I stabbed him in the chest. He gasped, he gasped. He fell, he fell. I pushed him off me. I pushed him off me. I got up, I got up. I ran, I ran. I ran to the door, I ran to the door. I opened it, I opened it. I ran outside, I ran outside. I ran to my car, I ran to my car. I got in, I got in. I started it, I started it. I drove away, I drove away. I drove as fast as I could, I drove as fast as I could. I didn't look back, I didn't look back. I survived, I survived. I had always loved camping, ever since I was a kid. I enjoyed being close to nature, breathing fresh air, and sleeping under the stars. That's why I was thrilled when my friend invited me to join him and his girlfriend for a weekend in a cabin in the woods. He said it was a beautiful place, with a lake, a waterfall, and a hiking trail. He said it was the perfect getaway from the city. I agreed to go, and packed my backpack with some essentials. I brought a tent, a sleeping bag, a flashlight, and some food and water. I also brought a camera, a book, and a knife. I met my friend and his girlfriend at their car, and we drove to the cabin. It was a long drive, but we had fun chatting and listening to music. We arrived at the cabin around 4 p.m. It was a small and cozy wooden house, with a porch, a chimney, and a window. It looked inviting and charming, and I was eager to see the inside. My friend unlocked the door, and we entered the cabin. It was warm and clean, with a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom. It had a fireplace, a sofa, a table, and a TV. It had a stove, a fridge, a sink, and a microwave. It had a shower, a toilet, a mirror, and a towel. It had a bed, a closet, a dresser, and a lamp. My friend and his girlfriend claimed the bedroom, and told me I could sleep on the sofa. I didn't mind, I was used to sleeping outdoors. I put my backpack on the floor and went outside to explore the surroundings. I saw the lake, the waterfall, and the hiking trail. They were all beautiful and serene, and I felt a sense of peace and wonder. I took some pictures with my camera, and decided to go for a hike. I followed the trail, enjoying the sights and sounds of nature. I saw birds, squirrels, deer, and rabbits. I heard the wind, the water, and the leaves. I smelled the flowers, the grass, and the earth. I felt happy and relaxed, and I forgot about the troubles of the city. I hiked for about an hour, and then decided to head back to the cabin. It was getting dark, and I didn't want to get lost in the woods. I turned around and retraced my steps, but soon realized that I had taken a wrong turn. I was in a different part of the forest, and I didn't recognize anything. I looked for signs of the trail, but I couldn't find any. I was lost, I was lost. I started to panic, and tried to calm myself down. I told myself that I could find my way back, that I just had to keep walking. I took out my flashlight and turned it on. I looked at my watch and saw that it was 6 p.m. I still had some time before it got completely dark, and I hoped that I could reach the cabin before then. I walked for another hour, but I didn't see anything familiar. I only saw more trees, more bushes, more rocks. I felt more scared, more tired, more hungry. I wondered if my friend and his girlfriend were worried about me, if they had noticed that I was missing, if they had called for help. I wished I had brought my phone, but I had left it in the car. I wished I had told them where I was going, but I had just left a note on the table. I walked for another hour, and it was almost dark. I could barely see anything, and I had to use my flashlight more often. I felt more cold, more thirsty, more desperate. I wondered if I would ever find the cabin, if I would ever see my friend and his girlfriend again, if I would ever get out of the woods. I wished I had never come to this cabin, but I had agreed to go. I walked for another hour, and it was completely dark. I could only see what my flashlight showed me, and I had to use it constantly. I felt more hopeless, more helpless, more doomed. I wondered if I would die in the woods, if I would starve, freeze, or get eaten by a wild animal. I wished I had never been born, but I had been. I walked for another hour, and I saw a light. I saw a light in the distance, and I felt a surge of hope. I thought it was the cabin, and I ran towards it. I ran as fast as I could, ignoring the pain in my legs, the hunger in my stomach, the fear in my heart. I ran. I reached the light, and I stopped. I stopped and I gasped. I gasped and I smiled. I smiled and I cried. I cried, and I thanked God. It was the cabin, it was the cabin. It was the cabin, and it was still standing. It was still standing, and it was not on fire. It was not on fire, and it was safe. It was safe, and it was home. I had found the cabin, I had found the cabin. I had found the cabin, and I had found my friend and his girlfriend. They were outside, they were outside. They were outside, and they were looking for me. They were looking for me, and they were happy to see me. They were happy to see me, and they hugged me. They had noticed that I was missing, they had noticed that I was missing. They had called for help, they had called for help. They had waited for me, they had waited for me. They had worried about me, they had worried about me. They had cared about me, they had cared about me. They told me what had happened, they told me what had happened. They told me that there was a fire in the woods, a fire in the woods. They told me that it was caused by a lightning strike, a lightning strike. They told me that it had spread quickly, it had spread quickly. They told me that it had almost reached the cabin, it had almost reached the cabin. They told me that they had tried to put it out, they had tried to put it out. They told me that they had used buckets of water, buckets of water. They told me that they had succeeded, they had succeeded. They told me that they had saved the cabin, they had saved the cabin. They told me that they had saved me, they had saved me. They took me inside, they took me inside. They gave me food, they gave me food. They gave me water, they gave me water. They gave me a blanket, they gave me a blanket. They gave me a bed, they gave me a bed. They gave me comfort, they gave me comfort. They gave me love, they gave me love. They gave me hope, they gave me hope. I survived, I survived.